Hello, Stadia gamers, and welcome to episode 20 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast. We hope you've had a good week of gaming so far. I'm joined this week by my usual co-hosts. We have Mr. Tom over there with his Sunday beef ready to bring to the table. And we've got Richard as well joining us, who is there with his super fast internet. He's recently upgraded this week. Welcome, Richie.
Hello there.
Welcome. And this is, gentlemen, episode 20.
Wow.
Can you believe it? We just discussed it in the pre-show before going live. 20 episodes. You've listened to our voices out there for 20 weeks now. What is wrong with you people?
You're absolutely nuts.
And I mean, really the amount of times we've overrun as well. We've probably recorded at least an entire day's worth of content right there.
That's right. So if you're new to the show, go back in time, listen to episode 1, started at midnight, and just listen to your heart's content all the way through the full day.
Yeah.
If you like
24
binging.
hours of Sounds of Stadia.
Yeah, Tom, if you're a Netflix kind of person, binge it. Go back. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the news stories will be out of time. They'll make no sense. We're probably quite rough and raw to start with, I'd imagine, in the earlier episodes. But you know what? We're getting better at it. And speaking of getting better, we've got our listenership up month on month, week on week. So massive congratulations to ourselves, but also a big thank you, I think, to everybody out there, really. We're consecutively hitting 200 listeners a week, and it's always on the rise. So if you're one of the new people out there, I just wanted to say a genuine thank you from all of us. And even just breaking down the episode, we've got people all over the globe listening to this show now. United States is actually our biggest one, which is surprising because we're from the UK. So
I've been looking at keeping an eye on the stats, and it's usually 50-50 between the US and Europe. So
US is pulling ahead.
There's nice competition going there.
USA. Come on, Europe. You've got to step your game up now.
I want to see Asia. Come on, Asia.
You want to see Asia represented.
Wait till Stadia is available in Asia first, gentlemen. Let's not overstep our reach just now. But to start off with, I think we should thank the people who are listening in Islington, England, Manhattan, New York, Seattle, Washington, Hatfield, England, Atlanta, Georgia, Chicago, Illinois, Flagami, Florida, wherever that is. Hopefully it's near Disney World.
It's Florida.
Yeah, all of Florida's near Disney World.
The list goes on, doesn't it? But
it really does, and it's scary. We've got Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Brazil.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So very, very, very heartwarming, and we really do appreciate all the time you take out of your precious busy weeks just to tune in and listen to our little podcast that we started off as a hobby, passionate about Stadia and technology, and we're looking forward to it flourishing into hopefully something bigger continually as we go on. A big part, I think we should probably drive home the message then before we kick into the show, is kind of the culmination of all the community and all the smaller people and all you listeners out there on your commute and your daily who's in the kitchen chopping peppers and stuff while listening to this show, is we have next week the Super Stadia Saturday kicking off with a bunch of other community content creators all around Stadia. It is supported by Stadia Source, so our friend Dan over there has been pulling everybody together from Stadia Cast all the way through to Ready Player One, Stadia Player One, that's Eddie, Chase, Stadia Talk. The list goes on, it really, really does. But we have Saturday 15th, so next week, we have an exclusive time slot to bring you the Sounds of Stadia podcast live for the very first time. So if you hear any of our mess-ups, which we usually do, they won't be edited or clipped out. You won't get the theme tune at the start, although we could do something around that, I think, before we
Tom
go
will sing it.
Tom will sing the theme tune a cappella style.
Get some real shenanigans.
Using some bamboo flutes. But yes, so we're going to be live next week. We have a slot of 7 o'clock till 10 o'clock GMT time, but the actual day in itself is going to be running over pretty much 24 hours around the globe. Bringing you content using the power of Stadia to create a bunch of podcasts, gaming content, competitions. We've got a grid competition going. 16 players can actually win really good prizes. And we're currently, I believe, I don't think we've got it sanctioned yet, but we're trying to work with Google and Ubisoft, I think, is in the pipeline. Gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong. We're trying to get those big players on board with our show and see what we can bring to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, really, the focus should be on the content and trying to bring the community together more than anything. But, if there is anything that we can do to take things away, to spice it up a little bit, I suppose, then we're always trying our best. Like, just to let you know, behind the scenes, like, people are really, really working hard to try to bring you an absolutely cracker of a day, really. But just stay tuned, keep watching things. And in particular, if you want to stay absolutely 100% up to date with what's going on, make sure you head on over to Twitter and check out Stadia Saturday. That's at Stadia Saturday, where all of the news, all of the events, everything will be posted and shared directly from there. And again, that's in affiliation with StadiaSource.com. So down over there, and a massive shout out as well to Duncan, One to Escape on Twitter, who has been working his ass off behind the scenes as well.
Yeah.
So again, just another shout out to him, because he is doing an incredible job.
Definitely. There's a lot of creators who are pulling together, and Duncan's kind of helping coordinate everything. So it's amazing the work he's doing.
Somebody needs to. Because I wouldn't trust us to try and pull something like that together. Yeah. So yes, thank you very much, Duncan, and keep up the good work, everyone out there. And hopefully we'll be speaking to you all next week. So exciting times. Will we be drunk? Who knows? You'll have to tune in to find out, because it's about that right sweet time on a Saturday afternoon for us. So I know the guys over in the States will just be waking up, but we'll most likely be sponsored by Captain Morgan's.
Yeah, we won't be sponsored by them, but Captain Morgan's will probably be the fourth seat in the podcast.
Richard, one day it will happen.
If you're from Captain Morgan's and you listen to this, hit us up. We're happy for a sponsorship with this.
Reach out to us. You don't even have to buy us it. Just give us a T-shirt or something. But yeah, so other housekeeping that we've got just before we jump into the actual main show is our second part of the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition playthrough is also available on YouTube. We've got some good traction on episode 1, so tune into that. We do plan to play through the entire game, so if you want to see some gameplay live on Stadia and you're a big fan of Lara Croft and ourselves, jump in and check us out, because there's quite a good bit of banter back and forth while we're playing through that. We are actually drunk as well. I don't know if there's a theme developing here, but we are pretty drunk at that point of the recording.
Towards the end of the night, we're playing Tomb Raider, so...
Yeah. 6 hours straight we played Tomb Raider 4, I think. So we got some really quality episodes lined up for you guys over on YouTube, which as of now, I can also let you know we have banked the official URL as well. So you can go to youtube.com/Sounds of Stadia, and it will genuinely take you direct to our site.
Yeah,
Small victories.
It's small victories, yeah. Everything's coming together, lads. Yeah. So it's a little hobby, and it's getting better and better, and we are totally committed to bringing you the best content from all the week's news of gaming and Stadia stories. So, Thomas, we might as well get started then with
the super sexy special Stadia story segment, aka, gents, the
news.
We'll try that live next week.
Yeah, well, that was quite close though.
I thought it was, and then you were slightly delayed, Richie. Slightly delayed. But remember, every one of you out there can sing along live every week when you listen to us on your preferred podcast platforms.
I like to imagine people in the cars driving to work and just going, the news.
They will. I'd like to think they can take part in the whole thing. Yeah. We need one of those on the live show. We need one of those, the bouncing dots on the old Disney movies that used to take you through it. Just jots along at the screen. If we could figure something that would be fantastic.
Karaoke machine. Lyrics.
Oh yes, karaoke. Yeah, forget the Stadia games. We're just going to be doing 3-hour live karaoke over on the Super Stadia Saturday. None of us can sing, but we'll give it a damn good go. So, first story of the week, gentlemen. We got a new game. We have a new game.
Wow.
Over on Stadia, we have Monster Energy Supercross 3, the video game.
Brum, brum.
It's finally out, and it's coming live. Day and date, I'm right in thinking? Day and date?
Exclusive. I'm not 100% on that, to be honest with you.
I haven't seen it on any. I haven't seen it on my PlayStation crossbar or anything. I wonder if Stadia are the guys who are pushing it. Do some digging, Richie. Find out while me and Tom talk about Super Energy Cross 3. Thomas, you're a big fan of Monster. You're a big fan of Energy. Are you a big fan of Supercross as well? Or the number 3, in fact.
The number 3 I'm particularly fond of, but Supercross
number.
Yeah, I'm not much of a follower of Supercross, to be honest with you. In fact, I didn't even realize there were any Supercross games out before this one. So I'm assuming there's 2 previous ones. I'm assuming.
That's generally how it goes, yeah.
Yeah. They haven't just released the game and just gone straight to 3.
Yeah, there's a prequel, there's a spin-off, there's a separate entire movie sequel.
Monster Energy Supercross, the prequel as well.
Yeah.
Following the Borderlands.
There's the Relentless Energy Supercross game. There's the Red Bull Energy Supercross game. Just can't be helped.
Does Monster Energy officially sponsor the whole Supercross scene or something?
Yes, I believe so.
Sure.
Because I know one thing I noticed on the box art, there was 3 guys. 2 of them were sponsored by Red Bull.
That's some smart branding from Red Bull right there. Get them to put us on.
Wow.
But In terms of the actual game as well, it is very much what you'd expect from a motocross racing game. I've checked out the first hour or so, and you jump in, you create your driver with whatever character building tools that they give at your disposal. As with motorsports games, it's not quite the in-depth creation tool you would expect from like Skyrim or Bloodborne or anything like that. But yeah, you create your rider, you pick your color palette essentially, and then you jump in and take part in the Supercross Monster Energy, whatever it's called. Grand Prix race competition, and essentially you do your whole like career mode arcade style game. It's essentially Trials Rising but on a 3D plane as opposed to 2D. Yeah, challenges, competitions, online mode, you can jump in. Graphically looks great, as you'd expect from any kind of modern game. It doesn't look too rough. It looks a damn sight better than that upcoming Fast and the Furious game.
True that.
I'll tell you that.
Quick sidebar on that, though. I really do apologise to everyone listening out there who is a fan of Supercross. Clearly, we know nothing about it, so very sorry.
I think it's probably one of them games where Supercross, you're probably going to love it.
Yeah.
If you're not, it might be a bit of fun to pick up on occasion.
Hardcore fan base.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, like everyone was playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and things like that, and I love skateboarding. But I mean, I used to also pick up like the Dave Mirra BMX games and mess around on those as well.
Yeah.
Probably less popular in comparison, but still have a good time with it.
There's usually a time and your place for your life for these type of games. I think very early doors where games were a bit more arcadey than they necessarily are now. I remember loving the Need for Speed games and stuff, Gran Turismo, and I found as I've gotten a bit older, I think because I can own a car, I could go out and actually buy a bike.
Hopefully you don't do the same as you do in Need for Speed.
Yeah, not quite motocross, yeah. Not quite the same. Got my LED lights underneath the car. But in terms of the kind of joy you got from it, I remember growing up and thinking this is something that you could potentially do in the future when you became an adult. Not necessarily the motocross stuff, but drive a car, drive a bike. And that's, I think, what the big appeal of games is. It allows you to live out that life that's maybe not in your wheelhouse of skills or abilities. And if you're a massive fan of the sport or just motorbiking in general, I think it's an opportunity for you to jump in and play some exciting sporty games.
It reminds me a bit of my thoughts on Grid. It's where I'd actually love to have it and just jump in from time to time, especially when there's people in the Stadia community organising 40-car races. But for the current price of it, it's just not worth it for me right now.
Yeah, they almost by default fall to a different tier of what I would be willing to pay for a sports game. Like if Monster Energy was like around the 25-30 mark, it'd be a lot more appealing than it is currently at. It's at $59.99.
Yeah. It's probably worth it if you're into racing games.
Yeah.
It's sort of like if you put that up like Monster Energy Supercross versus FIFA, like outright which one of those titles is going to win. Like it's not even a competition. So when you put the same price tag on it, it does seem a little bit imbalanced, doesn't it? So I'm definitely with you in terms of like maybe the pricing point is just wrong if they're looking for the popularity of it.
See, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it's wrong for me.
Yeah.
Again, if you're into racing games or if you're into Supercross, the price point might actually be right for you.
That was the point I was going to make. I think if you're a diehard fan of it and you know all of the, you know all of the famous riders in motocross and so on, Supercross, sorry, then you probably are just going to pick it up because you're a fan. You're a fan of it.
Yeah, which is probably a good marketing plan to kind of put it at full price day one, because then all your hardcore audience, your main people who are going to buy it, who would know when its release date is, know where they want to play it already, they're going to drop £60, no questions asked. Just as I would with any IP that I was a big massive fan of. If they announce, there's going to be some kind of competitive Battle Royale Lord of the Rings game coming out next month, and it was £60, I'd probably get it without even thinking. Yeah. Because it's something that I'm passionate and enjoy, which is sport in generally drags towards the most competitive, engaged people you've got. I know people who are massive football fans through and through, or soccer for those guys over in the States, and they buy FIFA religiously year on year. Regardless of how many iterations they've made to it or what changes they've done, they drop that money down, hands down, because they're fans of the sport.
I have a love-hate relationship with FIFA. I play way too much of it for a game I don't actually like.
There you go.
They've got you in their trap.
Prime example.
They've got you in their trap. EA, they know what they're doing. The
FIFA fly trap. So again, new games are fantastic news for Stadia, and the interesting thing with it being on this platform is I'm curious as to know how many people will have jumped in to Monster Energy Supercross 3 who actually aren't Supercross fans. But because of the game, we've discussed it last week, because Stadia's library is so small, people are just clambering for that new material to play.
I think it's desperate to be at some point in the next year, it's desperate to be a pro game to get people hands-on who have got hands-on otherwise. And you never know, that's when you can make more fans for the next game. Go, I really enjoyed this. I'll keep an eye out for the next one.
Monster Energy Supercross 4.
Yeah, sponsored by Red Bull.
Sponsored by Red Bull. Or Captain Morgan's. Right, so great news, new games. That moves us on to, speaking of probably new games, lots of new games, in fact. The kind of big story that dropped this week, amongst other things, was that Nvidia GeForce Now is now live. For those of you who don't know what Nvidia GeForce is, if you've not seen the news articles through the week, it's essentially the guys who make them. I'm right in thinking they make all the chipsets, the GPU processors for laptops and such. They have their own cloud gaming service, which has been in beta for a while. It's now live to sign up to, and essentially it's trying to replicate the story of Google Stadia, but using their own business model. And there's been a few articles out there. Now, the business models are slightly different to Stadia's, and we'll get into that in a short while. But Richie, we sent you as our little journalist to do a bit of research into Nvidia GeForce. You trialed it out a little bit for us.
Yeah, I only played for about an hour. The one thing I want to point out straight off the bat is I don't think it's in direct competition with Stadia. I really don't. It's a different platform. It's not even a platform. It's more of a utility. It's a way of playing games that you already own via the cloud, which I think is actually a cool service. The thing that's irritated me a bit, it's been branded as if it's a direct competition to Google Stadia, which in itself is a complete platform.
Yeah, a lot of the news websites picked up, and I saw infinite YouTube videos drop up saying this is Stadia's killer. GeForce Now has just launched; it's already better than Stadia, and obviously you're going to get that direct competition, I think, with anything in the cloud ecosystem now, because there's not much to compare it to. And I think because Google Stadia has been so heavily hit with bad press over the last couple of months and weeks, it's very easy to say, oh, he's a new competitor. The news could either go one of either way. It's not as good as Google Stadia, but that would be too easy, and that wouldn't get you any clicks or likes, as opposed to it's better in every single way. And I think, after your hour-long impression, some of the content I've looked at, it's, like I said, Richie, they're not on the same playing field. They're very much aiming at different art.
It's a different sport.
Is it motocross?
No,
Supercross.
It's it is Supercross. This is BMX. Like, there's similarities there, but they're not the same, entirely the same thing.
So just to give the listeners out there a bit of insight into it. So GeForce Now, they've got two membership models to start off with. So much like Stadia, they have a free model, although we don't know much about the base version at the moment. Now
we know a bit, and well,
we know it exists.
The thing that jumped out to me on the base model, your game time is capped to 1 hour.
Yeah, so
that sucks.
It's and by cap they mean you can play for longer than 1 hour. You just have to sign out of whatever game you're currently playing streamed and sign back in.
And that's a workaround people have found. They could easily patch that out.
But I believe that's server based, isn't it, as well? So if you have to sign back out, you might have to rejoin and then join a queue waiting for access to a server, because that's what I've seen a lot of reports on.
But the base version aside, going on the more is currently about £5 a month.
Funnily enough,
however, that is a sale price, not the actual price. So that's going to go up.
Yeah.
And that's still capped. I think it's 6 hours you cap to rather than 1 hour. And the wording is priority access, not guaranteed access.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to look into. So initially off the bat, they've dubbed it the Founders, which is clearly a direct shot across the bow towards another large streaming corporation.
Well, we heard that one before.
Yeah.
They're playing in the narrative. I don't believe
yeah, exactly. Because if they know they've got something that's going to kind of relight the fire underneath the bad press towards their future competition potentially, then why not do it? So you can sign up for the free base model with an hour blocked off session, or the Founders model, which is £4.99 per month. With the caveat as well, which I didn't notice, that wasn't also picked up on a lot of news articles, that locks you in for 12 months. It's not an opt-in, opt-out subscription like Stadia is. That is a commitment for 12 months at $4.99. Yeah.
Ooh, spicy.
So yes, it's cheaper per month than Stadia Pro, but you lock yourself in for 1 year. And as you said, Richie, that gets you priority access, whatever that means. It gets extended session length, so unlike the 1 hour session you get before, I did read something that mentioned it's only a 6 hour session length, which to be fair is perfectly fine for most games. But if you are one of those hardcore people who's plowing half your day into these games, you're going to have to do that log out and log back in at one point.
Kind of disagree. I think 6 hours is fine for the free version. I don't think there should be a cap on the premium version. If I'm paying for a service, let me use it. Don't restrict me.
Well, clearly what they're doing with it is they're basically just looking at seeing how they can manage the load. And I think that's going to be its downfall, because a company like Nvidia doesn't have the infrastructure to support it. So I'm sort of questioning, really. I mean, I haven't done enough research on GeForce Now to actually have an educated opinion on it. But whose server infrastructure do they use for this? That's where my question goes.
Their own,
I don't know. I wasn't overly fond of the UI as well. It's a lot of improvement that can be done there, because when you log into it, then there's a list of games that you can play. You find the game you want. If you own it on a different platform like Steam or Origin or Epic or wherever, then you'll have to log into that server, GeForce, before you can play it. So there's no direct sync. I sync up my account and there's all the games I can play.
Yeah, the library's not just there to go.
Again, people were very critical. We were actually a bit as well on Stadia's release, where not having all the features promised. This feels, again, like similar to Stadia. It feels like this should be still considered a bit of a beta. There's Tom, you mentioned the server loads and the UI not really being up to scratch. These are things that you can get by with in the beta.
Yeah, I think Nvidia, much like probably Stadia as well, are just trying to get out ahead of the Microsoft xCloud launch. These people I think the hand is almost being forced into trying to get to market early to start building up that user base and then work on everything. It's no different than a game launching now, and that gets like several patch updates further down the line. It is the industry we live and breathe in now, that everything day in, day on day one is not going to be the complete perfect model, and that goes for just games, but evidently also platforms.
Well, I think Stadia the guys at Google would have loved to be able to launch Stadia in April, but they've probably got to make the business decision to get it out early, which is probably where the idea of the Founders Edition came from.
Yeah, most likely. But if we look at some other details, I did watch a video from Bill over on Stadia Cast, and he does trial this out, and he goes, as you mentioned, Richie, he shows the UI interface off quite well. He demonstrates that it very much opens a separate browser within your computer, and that links into your Steam account. And he does trial Destiny 2, so we've got some good comparisons between Destiny running on Stadia. And you're right, it was kind of clunky, and there was no real direction as to where he was supposed to click. So it kind of launched the game in a separate browser. He logged into Steam via a window within a window. That then launched Destiny. It then said it was installing the game. So just like Steam would, it showed you the 120 odd gig download file. He clicked install. It closed the window down, and then he had to minimize the screen to find another window, which was in fact Stadia had launched, so it wasn't in fact downloading. It just played the game. I presume the install click essentially links up to the server that's going to stream the game. And then, it took you through all the Bungie terms, conditions, that rigmarole. And then he started, and to its credit, it seemed to run perfectly fine, just like our experiences did when we launched Destiny 2 on Stadia. The big thing for me was, the loopholes. If you're not massive into tech and you're jumping in for the first time, it's not as simple as you'd first want it to be.
I found it not as smooth as Stadia either.
Well, I mean, think Stadia, you log in and your games are in front of you.
For the record, I think, Chris, you mentioned at the top of the show, I've just upgraded my internet. I did try this out on my old shitty internet, which I could get. The reason I did that is because I could get by with Stadia on that. This was a hot mess.
Okay.
I've upgraded. So I will try it again. I want to give it a fair shout. But in terms of its performance at the low internet speeds, Stadia wins for me.
Yeah. And I think we've got to remember as well, this is very much aimed at people who have PCs already. Because
it's almost a success on the assumption that you already have a library of PC games, doesn't it, really?
Which is fantastic if you spend umpteen amounts of money dropped into like the Steam sales over the years, and you have got them there.
Steam sales.
Yeah, I don't believe they said all games are supported, because that would be a very blanket statement to throw out there nice and early.
They need to get that though.
looking at the games, I think the biggest thing that a lot of the news outlets have picked up on now is because it does access games libraries that are pre-existing, it has allowed them to bring out games like Fortnite and such, that are massive. Cuphead's on there, Warframe, Kingdom Come Deliverance. I think that Dying Light, this Dead by Daylight, there's plenty of games on there that have been out on other platforms that have had a port across the PC. Wolfenstein and such, Plague Tale Innocence, to name one from last year. Smaller, lesser titles like Tropico. So again, but when you think about the variety and you're comparing it directly to Stadia, I can see where the argument is that the games aren't there, and yet GeForce Now have came out of the gate and they quote unquote can say we have a library of thousands of games and some of the biggest ones in the world right now, like Fortnite. So you have got that direct comparison, pen on paper. You can put them side by side in a list, and the reality is you can play these on GeForce Now. Whether you've got to go through a bunch of membership caveats and sign in, sign back out, the key fact is you can play these games now on your PC with no cost,
and crucially on your phone as well.
Yeah. And Stadia doesn't have that benefit, so I can completely see where people are coming from. But UI interface aside, server load, as Tom alluded to, there's a lot of stuff to kind of maybe not take for granted right now, because if Stadia's taught us anything, the content out the gate necessarily isn't what is promised.
Server load might fix itself as more people get onto the platform. They'll probably upgrade the servers, increase the number of servers, all that sort of good stuff. So I'm not overly concerned about the server load. I think it's going to be a pain in the ass initially, especially on the free version of not having not guaranteed access, basically. And then when you are, time limit's capped. And stuff like it's stuff that pushes me away from the platform rather than into it. Stuff like that, it doesn't entice me to go for the pro version. It's like, well, I'm trying this out and you're not being nice to me, basically.
Okay, nice.
But I do think it has a potential, though. I've been very negative that to be a very good utility for PC gamers, but I just don't think it's not competition to Stadia. It's something different.
I think it's like PC Gaming Plus in a way, isn't it? It's like it's giving you the option to take that with you. So obviously, I can't haul my gaming PC away on holiday with me. But if you have an addictive personality and you want to carry on playing your games on the go and so on, then you can see the benefits of it, can't you?
Well,
but
yeah, I think it's not even for you on holiday. It has the potential to actually play games that your hardware can't. So for Tom, you mentioned your gaming PC. If you had a cheaper laptop and you were coming up here to visit family or whatever, instead of just bring your laptop. Yeah, makes sense. So it has potential to be a good utility. It's got some bugs to work out, but
I suppose what we've got to remember with all of this is all of these services. I mean, Nvidia have been in the hardware sector for quite some time. I remember one of the first graphics cards I ever bought for gaming was a GeForce 4 back when I was about like 15, 16 years old with my own pocket money that I saved up week after week. But, now we're looking at big players like we've got Google in the game, Nvidia having a stab at doing what they want to do. You've got some smaller companies who have been unheard of who are trying to have a go with this as well. And we've discussed it before that the likes of Amazon and probably Facebook are going to get involved at some point too. But all of these services are still new. Like at the moment, Stadia is 3 months old, if that. And if you look by comparison, like if I were to say, let's take a look back through history at when Sony first joined the market with the PS1, in the US alone, it took them 9 months to sell 1 million consoles from launch. 9 months. And we're only 3 months in at the moment. So you've got to give these things time to adapt. And we've always said it, that, you can't just take it for how the first few months have gone. Now, again, everything has their pros and cons, but you've got to let them sort of have the opportunity to fix those. But competition is good.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we're going to see a lot more of this. It's no doubt just a matter of time before Amazon and even Apple, I think, have got a big say in this. Apple, without even realizing it, became a games company, whether they wanted to or not, by launching their App Store on the iPhone back in the day. The reality is that their focus, I think Steve Jobs didn't even, he wasn't a big fan of games. He thought they were a waste of time or something. I'm sure he's been quoted as saying that before. So Apple, in their nutshell, even their early doors, they weren't a games company. And by launching their App Store, on their touchscreen phones, and then games have become so prevalent on there now. It's ironic how they've had to the hand's been forced to then buy into Apple Arcade, and it makes the most money for them. Their App Store generates more income than any other property that they have. So it's interesting, I think, when we do start switching towards servers and the future of streaming, you've seen them do it with their own TV content. Amazon, massive in there, and they all have the money and the financial backing to get into this. Facebook, you're right, Richie. Facebook obviously bought, was it Oculus they acquired a year or two back? Is that Facebook now? Yeah. So they're getting into gaming as well, and it's interesting because it is the biggest platform across all entertainment. You'd be daft not to, as Nvidia rightly have, go where the money is. That's how all businesses function.
Well, there's rooms of Amazon as well.
Yeah, and if you can remotely link into that, you've got some expertise behind that, like Nvidia clearly do. Why not? Why not test it out? And if you get in there early doors, like Nvidia and Stadia are, before the big hitters come in, like Xbox and potentially Sony, I don't see Nintendo getting into it anytime soon, just because of their traditional infrastructure.
Nintendo carved out a niche; they'll be fine.
Yeah, but how many of these players are going to drop off and not exist or disappear? Or more importantly, they could broker business relationships. Like we saw Sony do it with Microsoft for xCloud, which we'll get onto in the next story of the week. But yeah, so we'll keep an eye on it. I, for one, am going to trial out Nvidia GeForce on the free one, see if I get kicked off after an hour, and we'll go from there. But we'll probably bring some more stories. I would imagine over the next coming weeks, there's going to be a bit of back and forth between Nvidia and GeForce, especially when we finally learn about Stadia Base, which must be on the horizon.
You'd hope so.
I mean, it should be. We're in the middle of February almost now, so
we got
to see.
We got that Connect coming. Sort of. GDC.
I think I'm just so salty with GeForce because everything I've read since it's come out is goes, oh, it's killing Stadia. It's like, but it's not really writing up about GeForce. It's all about how it's the impact of it on Stadia.
It's all clickbait. It's all clickbait. We live in a clickbait world. Stop doing it, everyone. Just
You get Richie angry.
Get Richie angry. So if you want to tune in for Sounds of GeForce Now, that's our new podcast. No, it's not really. We wouldn't do that at Stadia. We are fans, and we've found a little niche community here, so we're not leaving you. So don't worry. GeForce is shit. Hashtag. We don't know yet. We don't know yet. We won't put our flag in the ground on that one just yet. But we're happy that there's some more.
It's not PlayStation Now. Put it that way.
It's not PlayStation Now, that's true. So to follow up from that news story, we kind of alluded to it a little bit there, but in other news, Xbox boss, that's quite hard to say that, Phil Spencer came out in a news article this week to a company called, it wasn't a company, sorry, I think it was an article, Protocol, who usually focus on kind of the big tech industry stories. So it's not niched specifically to games, but he came out as quoting that the competition, as far as Microsoft and Xbox are concerned, is not Nintendo and Sony going forward into the future. It is, in fact, Amazon and Google. What?
So before we go ahead, can we just start referring to him as the ex-boss?
The ex-boss.
Yeah.
Ex-boss Phil Spencer.
Yeah. There's got to be people in his life who refer to him like that.
Ex-boss. He refers to himself as that.
Yeah.
The ex-boss.
I'm not surprised about the Nintendo comment. I am about the Sony one, though.
I think it rings true, and we alluded to it in the last conversation there around Sony and Nintendo don't have the infrastructure traditionally. Like we've seen how many issues they've had over the years with their online components, and Microsoft do have that. And it just to quote there, so when you, in the ex-boss's own words, when you talk about Nintendo and Sony, we have a ton of respect for them, but we see Amazon and Google as the main competitors going forward. That's not to disrespect Nintendo or Sony, but the traditional gaming companies are somewhat out of position. I guess they could try to recreate Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud service, but we've invested tens of billions of dollars in cloud over the years. Mm-hmm. That's his quote from the Protocol article.
Yeah.
What do we think?
I think he's absolutely right, and I'm not going to sit here and say I told you so, but I told you so. You know, I mean, this is what we've been saying all along. If you look at the companies that actually have the infrastructure to support cloud computing in general, it is Microsoft, it is Google, it is Amazon with their web servers. Like, you know, it's those companies that have the ability to take this forward. And we are living in this world at the moment where everything is moving towards cloud computing. Like I upload stuff onto Google Drive all the time for work, for personal use, and so on. We watch stuff on Netflix. We watch stuff on, through all different streaming platforms, Amazon Prime. Gaming is going that way, and to hear Phil come out and say that, it's sort of like, it's about damn time somebody said something.
Yeah, I've actually pivoted based on this article, my thoughts on Amazon, because before I get carried away with Amazon because there's lots of rumours where I thought it made more sense than going to publishing rather than platform. But when the ex-boss himself is pointing the finger at them, it makes me now think that, because he will have knowledge that is sensitive information that he can't go public on, and that's prompted in part this. So yeah, I think in the next year or two we'll be hearing about Amazon's game streaming platform.
I mean, Amazon and Google go head to head with so many things as well. As soon as Google start doing something and Amazon catch wind of it, they're working on it behind the scenes.
I think as well, this is part of, I think, a bit of narrative building towards that. The box in the living room is dead a bit, because with Microsoft, I've really been pushing that. They're trying, obviously, they're a bit lagging behind Sony in this generation. So how do we get ahead? Let's push into streaming technology. And now they're basically going and saying, yeah, that box, yeah, we're going to have one, but you don't Sony, and then Sony just like, well, we've got a really good box.
Yeah, it really is. And the future kind of gaming wars, which I hate the term anyway, because everyone, like we've tried to make clear in this podcast, if you're into gaming, you're welcome here, regardless of what your platform is or your loyalties lies. At the end of the day, we all like playing games and enjoying ourselves in these other worlds. So the future, though, it's got to be in cloud. And I think everyone got caught out the start of this current generation where they were saying gaming's dead, console sales are dead, they yada yada yada, and then look at PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo flew through the roof. 109 million, I think, at last count for PS4. Nintendo Switch 50 million. We won't talk about Xbox, but you haven't released your numbers for about 4 or 5 years now, so we have no clue where you're currently sitting.
I'm assuming they're embarrassing compared to Sony's.
That's maybe why he's switching over to cloud. But the reality is, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, they're going to be the last kind of big push, I think, for technology in your living rooms, because as we've alluded to, the infrastructure for data speeds, graphic fidelity, frame rate across cloud-driven servers, it's getting to such a critical point now where you can't distinguish the difference between them. Why would you waste money buying a box? And at the end of the day, business is business, money is money. If you can save on the production, because we know all these companies make a loss on their actual boxes. PlayStation don't make any profit off the actual hardware for the first probably couple of years. It's always the software sales in the back end that kind of drive the numbers and the finances up. So when you're talking about everything being in the cloud, and Microsoft have been doing it for decades, even before they got into gaming, that infrastructure from businesses through to consumers across the board is powered by these cloud servers now. And if he's coming out and saying that, Amazon and Google, who have spent the last 2-3 decades building that logistical infrastructure behind the scenes to gather people's information, knowing what they're playing, know what they're doing, essentially spying on us. But they know it. They know every detail about our lives.
It's not spying. You've agreed to it, and
Well, yeah, read the terms, conditions. But yeah, you're completely right. And I think, again, no disrespect to Nintendo and Sony. Their IPs are fantastic. Their current business model is great. But can we see a PS6 and an Xbox, whatever it may be, and a Nintendo Switch future, whatever it may be, keeping up in another decade? It's 2030. How will everything look? It's going to be a very different landscape to where we are now.
I think the generation of consoles about to enter into the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 might physical boxes. Nintendo will do whatever Nintendo do.
Yep.
I see that Nintendo, they've got such a strong niche. They're completely separate from the rest of the gaming industry. Nintendo will just do what they do and they'll be fine.
I think what's spiciest about this news is the fact that if you look at these companies that we've already alluded to, the ones in question here, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, who are looking to take this to the forefront. If you look at a company like Sony, and the article goes on to allude to the fact that Sony are having to rely on Microsoft to use their cloud services as well, and that gives Microsoft a huge advantage right there over the competition, because if you see your direct competition as suddenly somebody who has to rely on your infrastructure. Surely you're doing something right.
Yeah, it's a really flipped message that it sends out, and I think the irony of this article coming out right off the back of all the negativity around Nvidia GeForce being compared to Stadia. So you have them going, "Oh, Stadia's been killed dead in the dust by Nvidia GeForce," and then I think it was the next day or later on the same day, the ex-boss himself comes out and says, "You know what, Nintendo, Sony, not really our focus. Our big competition is Google." Yeah. It's kind of an ironic twist of fate how that article follows shortly afterwards, because it does, you're right, Tom, drives home that message that he's putting that his flag in the ground and saying, no, our war will be waged with these two over the next couple of years, months. And
it shows a lot of validity as well, doesn't it, to what we've been saying all along. But not only that, like another article came out this week, which has got some people discussing maybe the focus for, without getting too off track here, maybe the focus for Stadia and for these cloud services is less about things like the graphical fidelity or exclusive games and things like that. And maybe we now need to be starting to look at the accessibility, because the idea of these cloud services is that it's going to open up gaming to essentially the world, because it doesn't matter how good your device is as long as it has access to the internet. And we know the companies are working on trying to get internet accessibility globally, like even in remote Africa, in the middle of deserts and so on, they're trying to get wireless internet and so on. But if you can then open up your platform to the 7 billion people in the world, then you know, what have you got to lose at that point? Because you're not narrowing your focus then. You're sort of broadening it to everyone.
Yeah, the globe is the biggest market out there. If you can tap into those markets where there's millions upon billions of people. I mean, even in the article, Phil goes on to explain, he says, I don't want to be in a fight over format wars with those guys, while Amazon and Google are focusing on how to get gaming to the 7 billion people around the world. So there it is. That is his direction. He's saying that it's not about how many consoles you sell, which is a bit ironic coming from the people in third place currently. But he's right. There's how many billions of people out there who don't currently have access to gaming. I think in the likes of Brazil, you can't even get a PlayStation 4 yet. Oh. I think they're always like that little generation behind, because something to do with the pricing or the import tax. They're always that far. Whereas if you come out with a gaming platform, everyone's got the internet now.
Yeah. Well,
a console, your platform's there.
The hardware is expensive. You're looking about what, $400-500?
Yeah.
Up as a one-off payment, where subscription services for a company like Microsoft then go, well, actually, we'll make more than that over the lifespan of the console generation just through a subscription service, because it's easier for people to pay a small amount every month.
Yeah, we keep repeating ourselves by saying it again and again, but it's the preferred model. That's why people now turn to paying for Netflix subscriptions as opposed to paying for, you know, Sky subscriptions in the UK, for example. Like, you don't want to buy a Sky box and then like a year-long package when you could be paying monthly. I mean, that might be a bad analogy right there, but, you know, it's one of those things that you've got to look at in the long run. Like, we've said before, time after time, that there is going to come to a point where you don't want to keep shelling out like portions of your monthly wage, but that is how everything is going. And you know, it is clearly successful because everyone is turning towards this subscription model.
Yeah, it is the future. The ex-boss says so.
Especially if you can just cancel for a month or two if you don't want the service. Because I know there's people out there who go, okay, I'm watching Netflix for a while. There's nothing really on. Cancel the subscription, get Amazon Prime for a couple of months, and then Now TV, and just cycle through them. And I can see the same thing happening in gaming.
Yeah, you can drop off and drop in a la carte, and as long as your library's still there, you're more likely to go back to it if and when that you want to jump back into gaming a little bit.
Yeah.
So big news there. I think it definitely highlights the kind of future direction that we're going in, and us and all of our listeners out there, we're obviously along for the ride. So future's exciting. So finally, switching over to some different type of news this week, we have a lot of the earnings calls come out, which you generally find going into the next financial quarter, and these big game companies who have their stockholders, their shareholders, they all have to get together and basically talk about what's the future of the year looking like, how is their bank balance going to look at the end of 2020. And we got some news from Ubisoft. They had an earnings call, which essentially gives a look into what games are coming this kind of financial year. And we reckon there is 5 AAA titles dropping. What do we think they are, gentlemen?
Well, Ragnarok is the first one. Let's just get that out the way.
Yeah, with it, surely this year, yeah. Assassin's Creed Ragnarok is one of the unlisted titles. Watch Dogs Legion we know about. Gods and Monsters we presume is the other one, and Rainbow Six Quarantine, which I'm not 100% what sure that exactly is. They're purely the 3 that we know of because they were all pushed back and delayed from early this year.
Isn't Quarantine that kind of the asymmetric thing? It's not. It's more of a multiplayer focused.
Yes. It's isn't it meant to be sort of along the lines of Siege, but with like a zombie theme or like an outbreak theme kind of
which
thing.
Sounds fun. Which sounds really fun. So they're the 3 we know about. You're right, Richie. Yeah, Assassin's Creed installment surely is the next one up. The way their development cycles generally work is they have one out every 2 years currently. So this will be the Origins team who will be putting this one out. We didn't have a game last year, so we're well overdue. I'm ready for that Assassin's Creed Ragnarok. I know you've been enjoying Odyssey, Tom.
Absolutely.
Give me some of that Norse mythology in there. We know how big of a fan you are of that. So 2 more games. What do we think?
A bit of a wild card here, but if it's before April 2021, potentially it could be Beyond Good and Evil 2.
You think?
We've
not seen
a Ubisoft
anything.
Game.
It is. We've not seen anything of it.
2017, I think.
Yeah, it was like two E3s back, I think, was the last time we saw any actual footage.
April 2021, that's getting me. So I could see this being a game that comes out February next year.
Interesting.
And we'll know if I'm right or not, depending on E3.
Tinfoil hat, Tom?
If it's coming next year.
My thoughts would be, I mean, I'm sort of taking this from other speculation here, but I would absolutely love to see a new Splinter Cell game. Like, I feel like it's been quite a while.
Is it? The time is right, is it?
Maybe it could be interesting, but I mean, they love their Tom Clancy franchises, really, don't they?
They do, yeah. They've clearly struck a deal with his IP.
I think Splinter Cell's in that area where like God of War was before the newest one, where it's due for a refresh of what the game style a bit.
Or do we see a new IP? Do we see a new IP, or do we see something like the next Far Cry? Like you say.
I think Far Cry is a safe bet. They tend to aim the Far Cry games at that early year period, the March-April time, and it's been. I know we had Far Cry New Dawn, but that was essentially just a reskin of the same map. I finished that game. It wasn't anything to write home about. But yeah, the last main Far Cry game was about another year prior to that. So we're about probably in the right time frame for another one.
It could be a new IP if they come out. Again, I'm thinking E3 is going to be quite enlightening for this. If they come out and go, and one more thing, and there's a new franchise, and it's coming next year, early next year. But
aren't they supposed to be developing a pirate?
I was just thinking that, Tom. Yeah, we've got Skull and Bones, which has just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Would that be count as a AAA title that they bring up in the earnings call, though?
I would have thought so. They pretty much pushed it at E3 as though it was like Assassin's Creed level graphics, but with the ship warfare that you were familiar with from like the likes of Black Flag.
Wasn't it supposed to be sort of like almost like
it was like Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves, that's where I was going.
Online only, you'd fight in teams and crews and you'd just wage war at sea. I personally saw that and thought it looked fantastic initially, and then once I learned it was online only and there was no campaign or story to it, it kind of upset me a little bit, because I was hoping for essentially a spin-off of the Assassin's Creed franchise where you're a pirate. That's all they have to do. Just give me more Black Flag. Get rid of all the Assassin's Creed content. Give me side missions where I'm hunting people, searching for gold treasure. But then it's that sea warfare which made Black Flag so fun and engaging. A couple of castle forts to maybe bring down, and just some kind of loosely based pirate themed story. And I'd buy that. But the fact that they said online only, I think for a new IP to be online only, you've got to really strike gold.
I think they've probably looked at you meant the other pirate one that came out recently.
Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves, yeah. I think they probably looked at that and then it was not long after that they started putting delays on it. I wonder if they've looked at it and went, okay, we need to rework a few things.
Let me pique your interests here a little bit, and let's see what sticks. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. So Ubisoft, what have we got? I'm just trying to think back through like an old category of things here. Rayman, yeah, there's Rayman. Could we see
tracing.
With ray tracing?
Is this Ubisoft developed or Ubisoft published? Because they do have.
I think it's just Ubisoft franchises, right? Because I was going to say my next one I was thinking of was Driver.
Oh,
Driver.
That's a throwback.
Prince of Persia.
Oh, yes.
Just Dance.
Yeah, Just Dance 2021 is a guarantee for the Nintendo Wii.
That could be the fifth right there. It could be that boring.
Is that AAA though? Just Dance?
It
That's
sells a lot.
I wouldn't categorize it as AAA though.
It's your party games though, isn't it? You know how Nintendo likes to cash in on those party games. I mean, Just Dance is it's the one that pushes out to all other platforms. What else have we got? I'm just having a quick look through.
Prince of Persia is an interesting one.
Prince of Persia would be awesome.
I could see that working, especially just the rewind time aspect of it's so cool in a video game. It's a concept that's not used enough.
I'm looking through the wiki page and there's something I just saw that I hope it is.
South Park.
It's a new South Park game.
A third South Park game.
Well, I know they've had the problems.
And Fractured But Whole were both amazing games.
Got to be careful saying that on air, Richie.
What? South Park.
Fractured butthole.
But yeah, I know they had some trouble production with the South Park games because I think did they initially pick up the first one later in its development? Stick of Truth, I think they came in and finished it off from a different developer or publisher, did they not?
Possibly.
And then but from what I've read, I know you've played them both, Rich. Yeah, they're brilliant games. But yeah, I think I think Splinter Cell, Far Cry. We know, Sea of Thieves, give or take, we'll see. But what interests me about this now is because they've pushed their entire library back, essentially, from this year. Because by now, we should, in theory, be playing Gods and Monsters within the next month. We should be playing Watch Dogs. In fact, Watch Dogs Legion, I've still got a timer set on my phone from way back when at E3 when they announced it. And I think I got reminded this morning, it was like 23 days, give or take, until it was due to come out. So it must have been like late February, early March. And it's nowhere to be seen. So all these games that get pushed back, where do Ubisoft see this having a knock-on effect of their catalogue? Because if you're trying to drop a Ragnarok in traditionally October, is that when Watch Dogs is now going to come out? And then they're almost starting to cannibalize their own library here by having too many things in the pipeline because they want to get these development studios onto their next title to line up for next gen as well.
That's kind of why I think
them cooking for too long.
Yeah. That's why I kind of think South Park might be an interesting one because it's a very different style of game to the others. So you could literally release South Park number 3 and like Assassin's Creed within like a month of each other because they're different audiences. They're not going to cannibalize each other.
Yeah, I almost feel like you could say the same thing though for Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed because I know like I haven't cards on the table again here. I haven't actually really played much of the second Watch Dogs game. So I think I'd be leaning more towards picking up Ragnarok, but I definitely want to get Legion. Like Legion has really piqued my interest, but I still think they also have their own unique fan bases. They probably do cross over a little bit, Venn diagram for whatever you want to call the categories, but I still feel like they're their own fan base. Really.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how much not only cross-pollination, but how much Ubisoft have kind of spread themselves over the last couple of years. Because we've now got The Division 2, they're constantly updating and adding more content to. Rainbow Six Siege is in its 5th year, whatever it's up to now. You've got Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which they've already came out and said that they're going to double down on and totally rechange that game. You've got For Honor, which I just saw has also had another year season pass or content drop. So they've got a lot of like live action games, which we know is a lot of income for Ubisoft. So maybe that their priority isn't on these story-based ones necessarily. So putting them back, it may not be too bad for the financials call, especially if you're going to get that cross-gen at the end of the year as well. How many of these games can we see coming out on PS4, Xbox, and then PS5 and Series X? Assassin's Creed Black Flag, we alluded to it earlier on the show, that was cross-gen. It was there to go.
Yeah. I think you do get that, don't you? Though when a new platform releases, you get a lot of things that are sort of cross-pollinating between platforms, and it's just about maximizing sales, isn't it, when it's a fresh console?
I actually still think they made a bit of a mistake with Black Flag, where that could have been splinting off into a second franchise and not drop the Assassin's title and have it Pirates Creed or something.
Yeah.
And then you've got two franchises operating in the same universe.
Yeah.
And you could take them different directions.
Yeah. That's what Skull and Bones should have been, Richie. Yeah. It should have been Black Flag, title of your spin-off, and just get in total separate. Alas, they may come back, they may rebrand Skull and Bones because they've not said anything about it, but we'll see. But exciting times in terms of game content for the end of this year. Bloody hell. Yeah. There's just so much to play come the end of this year. Especially what is great with it being Ubisoft is they're most likely all going to come to Stadia.
Probably, yeah.
Well, we know they have a good relationship with Google right there, so fingers crossed.
There's Uplay slated for...
Yeah, all them Uplay games are coming too when we finally hear about that. So off the back of earning calls as well, we also had one from Activision Blizzard, which was kind of a little bit different to our topical conversation on last week's show, where we discussed the deal with YouTube gaming and esports, what that meant for Google Stadia. There was a gentleman, I believe I've got the article here, I will quote him, doing the real true work for Google Stadia out there. There's a gentleman called Colin Sebastian, who was an analyst who was in part of the earnings call as well. I'll just read his question out. So, thanks for digging down a little bit into your relationship with Google. I'm wondering what the key factors behind the decision to partner with GCP, whatever that is, and then as well as YouTube Gaming. Are there, as well, their considerations or implications embedded that could increase your level of support for Stadia? Thank you. So that is Colin's question on the earnings report to Chief Activision Blizzard people. So there you go, Colin, doing the great graft work and asking all the hot topic questions out there. No doubt they just wanted to know about how much money they're going to earn. And then Cody Johnson, who's the President and Chief Operating Officer, fancy title. He came back, Cody, whatever. He came back and essentially gave him a typical apolitical answer of, he didn't really give an answer. He kind of went off on a tangent about
talk for long enough and they'll forget the question.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, the question was only a paragraph long and his response is like 4. And essentially all he talks about is it being a formidable platform, great for infrastructure. Our Google partnership is fantastic for trade, business deals, on-demand content, audiences, tremendous opportunity, different formats. He essentially ticks all the boxes bar just directly answering the question. And he kind of basically wraps up by not giving an answer.
It's kind of
very political.
So it does say
we're in talks.
But
we have nothing to announce at this moment.
Yeah, it's got there. Yeah, we continue to watch with interest and will make appropriate assessments as we go forward to figure out our own steps. But I think what is just on the last thought, a broader point, which is over the last 2 years we've been talking about large technology partners, yada yada yada. We could use this as an example, large value going forward, and we think we're only even in a better position for our partners as we take the next steps. Thanks. I could imagine. I'd love to pan across to Colin's face at that point, just to see
the massive eye roll.
Yeah, the massive eye roll, or look up at the skies and just really that's all you're going to give me. What I would like to see in that interview is if earnings call is Colin just go, follow-up question. And then just repeats the same first question again. Do you think the relationship with Google and Stadia is going to see any future support embedded? And then watch that Cody guy just go awkward.
I think you are, you're spot on with calling it a political answer. It is very sort of middle ground, isn't it? Like a very grey area. GCP, just to clarify, is Google Cloud Platforms. Just so when that comes up, GCP, they are talking about the Google Cloud in general. But interestingly, for me in particular, last night was the first night that Overwatch League aired on YouTube.
So excited on that on Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I think one of the things that they're doing is we obviously know that they have this deal now with YouTube Gaming. Activision Blizzard now have the exclusive, YouTube Gaming has the exclusive production and distribution rights for Overwatch League at the moment. So the season has just started with the first games happening last night. And there's over 200 million people watching things online. So a company like Activision Blizzard are now going to be looking at the numbers from last night's viewership, for example. And Overwatch 2 is scheduled for release this year as well. And that's a game that I've been quite vocal on before, online, on the podcast, on social media. I would see that they are going to make a decision on whether they push games like that to Stadia based on the success of the numbers in terms of viewership as well. So I
wonder if they're looking into, because it's a bit more complicated with action, because they already have Battle.net. If they're looking into almost like a Uplay solution to bring that to Stadia, or potentially bring that to other platforms.
Maybe.
There's probably a lot of complicated discussions, nothing finalized. So in an earnings call where they're probably nowhere near getting a deal, they're probably like, well, we can't really say anything. We don't want to say anything either way to jeopardize it.
Yeah. Interesting. But it's one of those things, yeah, like I said, not really a true answer, but hopefully they'll have some statistics tallied up over their relationship with Google to make them really think hard about it. Because I'd love to see Call of Duty drop onto Stadia this year, but we'll see. It may not be coming as soon as we'd hoped for. In other news then, another story from one of the bigger companies, which is Stadia related. The Rockstar Games co-founder has left Rockstar. So Mr. Dan Houser, who I think founded the company way back when, the original Grand Theft Auto games, has stepped aside. He's left his brother there, Sam, to basically run the company, it would seem. But essentially, he was the co-founder of Rockstar Games. He's the head writer on games like Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto, and he's leaving in March, which... to be fair, the guy's probably loaded at this point. Why would you continue? So 1998 is when they kickstarted everything off. Does this come as a surprise? Do you think this will change Grand Theft Auto 6's development going forward? Or what are our thoughts, gentlemen? So big guys left the house.
I mean, there's a point when you start a company that you let it go. Like, it's inevitable. Like, once you've seen it flourish, once you've seen it grow, and you're happy with the success that's coming from it, it's essentially, yes, it's your baby, but you sort of watch it grow up and you sort of like leave it to its own at that point then and go into work on a new passion project instead. So I think,
because these are the two brothers who essentially they write the scripts, they pull in the talent for these stories, which Red Dead Redemption 2, Grand Theft Auto, their campaign modes have been fantastic. Like in terms of story driven content, they're critically acclaimed, they're second to none, and they are damn right commercially successful. That cannot be denied. Maybe it's just that time, like you said, Tom. He's clearly got enough money in the bank, and the stresses of maybe looking onward and forward towards Grand Theft Auto 6. Will it be able to kind of repeat the success that Grand Theft Auto 5 had? It's a big step, and I think if you're ever going to leave somewhere, leave on a high, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and he has previously took an extended break, so I wonder if this has just been a case of almost a little bit of burnout over a very long period of time, where he's kind of got to the point where I have to put a lot of stress and a lot of effort into making these games, and it's, as you say, Chris, I've made my money. It's like, it's time for me to move on.
Yeah, I think, you just get to a point where you have to sort of evaluate like the level of work you put into something. And yes, we know it is something he's extremely passionate about because obviously he was one of the co-founders of the company. But, you've always got to put yourself as number one, really, and always look after yourself. Yeah. So if it comes down to a point that he's doing it because of burnout or because of family, starting his own family or just following another passion project, then you've got to give credit to the man for making that decision. Will it have an impact on GTA 6? Yeah, I suspect it will. I can't see it not.
Just because he's left the company doesn't mean he won't be involved in GTA 6. He could be consulting, coming back as a contractor, especially on the script side. If it's a case of, okay, we need to put the story together, come in to almost consult on the story for a couple of months. Yeah. And then occasionally throughout the next couple of years, rather than actually having the weight on his shoulders.
I mean, the reality is his brother's still there. So you're not telling me his brother's not going to run a few stories and ideas by him, give him a sneak peek at the script and all that. And I'm sure he's got some kind of legacy, kind of like honorary Rockstar member or something where he's allowed to consult and come back, and he'll be no doubt welcome at the studio if he feels free to pop in. But I mean, to be fair, the Houser brothers in general, they've not really been front and center. They're not like Cory Barlog and stuff with Santa Monica and that. They're not really out there in the public space. They very rarely do interviews. So what them leaving is kind of Rockstar very much is more like a brand rather than a lot of other studios kind of put their people to the forefront and say, look, we're human, we're making games. Rockstar's very much a business.
That's more something that's only actually happened over the last like 5-10 years, which maybe it's got to the point where that's the next thing that Rockstar needs to do.
Yeah.
And maybe he just doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Or he's not the right person for it, so step aside and let someone else.
Yeah. I mean, Rockstar do so well at just keeping it as a business. You just see their logo and you don't associate it to a human being. You just see it as a brand and think, wow, their games are amazing, which is great because, I mean, look at on the flip side, look at EA. They essentially want to get humans following and go, look, we make these games, we're really passionate. They've done it with DICE and Star Wars and such and Battlefront, as opposed to just being that faceless corporation that just churns out money and does bad practices.
Yeah, I think we have to remember that actually Rockstar, on the lead up to Red Dead, were getting criticised for things like crunch and stuff. So maybe that is a way they want to present themselves to the world, to actually go, no, let's be a bit more personality focused a little bit, because it has worked for other studios. And if he's thinking like, and he's a game developer and a businessman, does he want to be going on E3 with millions of people all over the world doing this very charismatic pitch to try and sell the games? Maybe he's looking at it and like, there's other people for that, and it might just be the business compared to things like his family life, whatever, a bit of burnout. It's probably not one factor. The one thing we can say is it does seem to be like, he's leaving with the goodwill of Rockstar. It's not like a dispute or anything.
Yeah, true. And again, if I was in his position, I think the amount of money that he's taken on board and the stresses and successes and achievements and stuff, why not step aside now and let Grand Theft Auto be its own thing going forward and allow Red Dead Redemption 3 inevitably. But I think the biggest pushback Rockstar have had recently from their shareholders when we talk off the back of earnings calls has been that their production rate for games has been significantly lower than it has done in previous generations. We have to remember we haven't had a Grand Theft Auto this entire generation.
Haven't needed one.
We've had a remaster, yes, but we've not had a brand new game. So essentially, in 7, nearly 8 years, Rockstar have produced one game, Red Dead Redemption 2. Which from an earnings and a business point of, the games make money. And I know you can't turn a blind eye to the amount of cash Grand Theft Auto brings in, but from a shareholder's point of view, they'll want to know what's next in the pipeline, and maybe Dan's just had enough of playing that game and he just wants to retire with his millions.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if Grand Theft Auto 6 isn't in late stage development already. And it's probably artificially holding it back, because why release Grand Theft Auto 6 when 5 is literally every single month is in 10 like digital downloads for Sony. Yeah. They're making tons of money for a game that's about 7-year-old?
Yeah.
So why? Older, So why get in your own way? Wait till the next console generation and go, right, here you go.
Yeah, I'd wager the next Grand Theft Auto will just be a platform. I don't think it needs a number. It should just be Grand Theft Auto. And then that is where everything goes. And yes, they can drop content story in there, but clearly it's not the priority. I'd love to see a Undead Nightmare for Red Dead Redemption 2. That was one of the best games I played on last gen, Undead Nightmare. It was so fun. And yet, we didn't get any extra story DLC for Grand Theft Auto. We haven't had Undead Nightmare as of yet. Clearly their focus is on other projects and priorities.
I like the idea of,
Mr. Dan, we wish you well. I'm sure he's going to have a fantastic retirement if that is what he ends up doing. I'm sure he's got millions upon millions of dollars in the bank. So that brings us a wrap up to our news stories this week. We are running a little bit over time, as per usual. It would not be the Sounds of Stadia podcast if we did not go over the hour mark. But before we leave, we opened up a new segment last week, with it being a Sunday, the day we record. Tom, get the gravy ready. It's time for our Sunday beef with yourself. What have you brought to the table?
I brought a bit of sirloin this week. A bit of sirloin, boys.
Okay. So what's rubbed you up the wrong way this week, Tom?
Oh, yeah.
Let it all out.
Spices, rub it in that meat right there. Right. This week, you may have seen, for those of you who follow my Twitter account quite closely, I don't like naysayers. I don't like people. I mean, people are entitled to opinions.
Just I don't like people.
don't like people, okay? I just don't like people. I'm not a people person. No, I'm very much a people person. No, in particular on Twitter recently, I've just noticed there's been a lot of an uprising in people sort of taking the opportunity to be naysayers again, which we know they're out there. We've heard it all before, but they're taking it to platforms where it's sort of irrelevant, shall we say? So most recently, I was quite active in a discussion about an upcoming community event that Stadia streamer, someone in the Stadia community, is hosting a Destiny 2 PvP style tournament. To which an individual on Twitter decided it was a good idea to start basically saying, "Oh, Destiny 2 on Stadia is dead. Come over to GeForce Now. It's so much better. There's thousands more people. Yada yada yada." To which I sort of felt like, mate, that's not really sort of like the platform for it, because all this person is doing on Twitter is trying to promote a competition. Trying to promote a competition, and somebody feels it's necessary to go out of their way to sort of say, your competition's stupid because it's on Stadia. It's like, look, you're entitled to your opinion. I know you do not think that Stadia is going to be successful. A lot of people don't. A lot of people do. We've got to give it time. But there's a time and a place for these sorts of things. Like, you are allowed your opinion. You are allowed to go out and try a platform and think, it's not very good, like, and so on. But you've got to be careful with where you say these things, because you are looking for an argument. And my beef this week is with people who are taking to social platforms and are voicing their opinions in the wrong damn places. And I'm going to start being I'm going to be a bit vindictive, shall we say. You're going to start seeing me on social media having a go at these people, and I'm going to call them out. I'm going to start calling them out week after week. So if you're one of those people out there who doesn't think Stadia is going to be a success and is not willing to wait to see what's going to happen, then chances are you're going to hear from me at some point. So watch this space.
If not, search for him on. Yeah. What's your Twitter handle, Tom? Hunt him out. So, yes, don't feed
my own personal witch hunt. Yeah. This is it. It starts today.
He's declaring war on all trolls.
Yep.
That's a
well, actually, not all trolls. All trolls that use Stadia fan groups to basically just go, you shouldn't play Stadia. It's like, just don't. You don't have to.
Look, let me be completely clear. I am not a fanboy of Stadia. I have been critical of this platform. But again, I acknowledge that whilst you are entitled to your opinion, there is a time and a place for where you should voice that opinion. And it certainly is not in fucking people's advertisements for community competitions. Yeah. Rant over.
Tasty beef there, Tom. Thank you very much. Richie, would you like to add anything to that, or are you happy with the Yorkshire puddings on the side?
Yorkshire puddings on the side, definitely.
Yorkshire puddings on the side.
I'm not a big Yorkshire pudding guy. I prefer a small one on the side.
Oh, God, small Yorkshire puddings. I thought you were just going to say Yorkshire puddings in general then.
Oh, God, no.
I was about to say you are no longer my friend, sir. But yes, so that brings us a wrap on all the juicy stories this week and all the juicy rants that Tom is probably going to bring as a weekly segment, it appears, because it was quite well received last week. So yes, that brings us to a wrap of episode 20. 2-0. Again, still can't believe it. Thank you very much to our listeners out there. You can find us over on at Twitter, Sounds of Stadia, at YouTube, Sounds of Stadia. Where else are we at Sounds of Stadia, Tom? twitch.tv/Sounds of Stadia.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts.
Everywhere you
every
want
podcast.
To listen to us.
Every podcast. Sounds of Stadia.
And do not forget, next week, Saturday, we will be coming to you live with episode 21 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast.
And by Chris's reckoning, that also means it's legally allowed to drink in the States.
Yeah, that is true. Therefore, we will be cracking open the rum and coke and having a great time, recording the podcast, playing some games for your entertainment. So definitely join us in the chat. Throw us your questions. We really want to make it an exciting day, and we'll be definitely watching along as the day kickstarts across all the other community members. And we'll be bringing it to a forefront between the hours of 7 and 10 with the Sounds of Stadia team, which will be myself, Tom, and Richie, playing some Google Stadia stuff and really just showcasing what is available. Also, do not forget the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition Let's Play is still up on YouTube. Jump into episode 1 and follow through to episode 2. We will have a new one actually going live on the very same Saturday morning that the 24-hour live stream is going on. So join us, jump in, give us your feedback, give us your questions. But if that's everything, gentlemen,
So it's from me.
I've been Chris.
I've been Tom. And I've been Tom.
You can't do the news in sync, but you can both say your names at the same time. Let's try that again. No, I've been Chris.
I've been Richie.
And I've been Tom.
Thank you very much for listening. We've been Sounds of Stadia. Goodbye.
Bye.
Podcast.
Wow.